Good morning and welcome back to another round of Steel Connect webinar. So I'm Rocky and your host today to talk about steel and building related topics. So before we start, as usual, if you have any questions that you want to ask during the webinar, feel free to drop it in the Q&A box on the side. So we have one polling questions to ask during this webinar, and it will pop up on your screen. And this is just to get your collective feedback. So for fellow architects and engineers, if you wish to claim your LAM CPD points or BEM CPD hours, please stay through the entire webinar. Survey window will pop up also on your screen at the end of the webinar. And you may submit your LAM and BEM membership number via the survey form. So as you can see from this flyer, we are really happy to reach a milestone today. So it marks a special occasion for this Steel Connect webinar today, as just a year ago, we started this webinar with the intention of reaching a wider audience amid the pandemic. With your support, we have actually conducted 12 successful sessions. I'm glad that we have reached our first anniversary milestone since launching it back in May 2020. So to celebrate this occasion, we have actually invited BlueScope's polymer coating experts to share more insights about his experience working with the paint development and how it translates into the final product. So let me just introduce our speaker today. So our speaker today is Fakhri Zaki. So Fakhri is, his background is about chemistry, it's about paint technology and project management. So of course, beyond just his academic, Fakhri has dedicated 33 years of his life of his career in coil coating technology, and of course, in most part, studying the paint technology. So out of Fakhri's decades journey in research, he has dedicated 17 years with BlueScope, where he shared his expertise in various capacities. So his previous roles include senior scientist, product evaluation manager, and most recently as the polymer coating approval specialist. As we were preparing for this webinar, Fakhri actually shared that his research and development of paint technology is like raising his own kids, where patience and love can result in wonderful outcomes. So we are honored to have Fakhri with us today to celebrate this special occasion. And with his rich experience in research and development, we will learn how to choose the right coated steel for you, and what kind of questions you should ask and need to ask about one product before you make a final decision. So we'll pass the mic to Fakhri to share his view and experience with us.
Thanks, Rocky. Very generous introduction. Thank you very much for that. Hi, everyone. Thanks for sparing the time and to allow me actually to share part of my experience with you and this presentation, which is hopefully by end of it maybe will add any value in relation of your choice of pre-painted steel. So knowing myself, I think I need to start very quickly because I can talk actually for days actually about coil coating. It's my passion, and as Rocky mentioned before, I spent 33 years of my life designing and formulating coil coating and pre-painted steel assessments. And during that time, one of the most important questions all the time I was asking myself while I'm designing or formulating a product is what would be the customer expectation out of this product? Would that product meet the customer expectation? So before even I answer that question, I needed to come up and understand actually what would be the customer expectation out of this product. So I came up with few points which you see in front of you there. Maybe that will cover everything or maybe cover a small part of it. but I believe it actually can give guarantee if we make sure that we're meeting this expectation, that the product actually will meet most of your expectation. You're 100%, we open for your suggestion to add to that and let us know if anything else required. At least we can consider it in developing the new product for you. So the first, I will start with the first one, which is when we formulate the product, we believe the customer expects it to be beautiful, durable, and versatile. Forget durable, but designer, the builder, to actually make it beautiful. And not only make it beautiful, actually make it beautiful in stage one, actually as a zero time life of the project, and then hopefully that durable word will jump in and it stays beautiful for the rest of the life of the product. Second point I put there, by the way, for us, it should be the first. For BlueScope, actually, safety, it's the number one, as you heard many times. So when we say it's a safe product, so that means the product has to be formulated without any nasty material into it. Last thing you want that you can harm the people actually using the product or manufacturing the product, or later on during the life of the product, getting material going to the environment or harming the people actually dealing with that building or walking around it. And being sustainable, that means using material that's not going to harm our or deplete our resources in general. So if I go back to the first one, let's talk about durable in there. So the third point we're talking about is I believe the customer should expect when a pre-painted steel supplied to them, that pre-painted steel was subject to years of testing and knowing exactly if it failed, how it's going to fail, how long it's going to take, and all these things. Without doing that work, it's a matter of luck. It's a matter of it looks good at zero life once you've been installed. And if it's not tested, nobody can guarantee would it last for a year or two or 20 or so on in there. And part of that testing, that's, I believe, again, the customer is expected that product when supplied in Malaysia or Australia or Europe or wherever, they expected that's being tested in that environment, because every environment will need a different design product to suit a specific things. For example, if you're talking about European market, cold weather, you need a product that's very flexible. If you're talking about in Asia, Australia, product that can handle heat and so on from there. And again, one of the most important thing that's the product itself. Again, the customer should have a suitable warranty for the required product. And in my opinion, one of the most important thing actually, that you've got a very strong team, technical team by the supplier of the product, that you can go back to them during choosing the material, during the design of the building, and then even during the life of the product, that you can go back to them and ask the question if required. So having a strong team, guys, it doesn't come from nowhere. It means that team actually been educated for years to be able to answer your question, and they know the product very well. Last one, affordability. I know that's critical to a lot of people, and it is critical for any one of us formulating a product or putting a product together actually to go to the marketplace. However, it has to be balanced between the last one, affordability, and all the rest on top of there. So we have to balance between, okay, being affordable, and it has to be safe, it has to be versatile, and so on and there. And keeping in mind one thing, guys, it's affordability. You can divide it to two areas. Affordability when you choose the product, zero life, which is, can I afford buying the products and put it on my roof or design my building out of it? Or the other side of it, can I afford later on during the life of the product to have claim against my product? And based on my previous experience, when you get claims, or when we get claims for whatever reason, it's far, far more expensive than the first one. So keep that in mind. By having a look to that, to what could be the customer expectation, that expectation mainly would help all of us to choose the right products for the right environment. Apology. Press that one. Okay. So that slide, and again, my apology for stating the obvious. Most of you, if not all of you, are actually aware of what's the DNA or what's pre-painted steel actually, how it's designed. But mainly we're talking about the reason I put that slide to give you a good understanding of the effort that should be put by the pre-painted steel manufacturer to make sure every layer you see in front of you, it has to be designed correctly, because any mistake in designing any of those layers can lead to catastrophic failure of the product. Even, I mean, if we're talking about the steel, okay, maybe that's easy one. Metal coating, starting from there, is very critical. Cleaning that metal coating. You imagine that you put most expensive top coats and primer and over a dirty, or you used, or the pre-painted steel actually manufacturer used the wrong cleaner in there that's not compatible with the rest of the layer. You literally, you will find the whole system is collapsing. So it's a combination and balance of manufacturing the right product the right way for the intended environment in that. Go back again to beautiful and versatile, and we just put those two pictures for you. I'm sure there is a very good possibility of got even more beautiful picture for out of your design, but it's very versatile product, and it's very easy decision, initial decision. Why? Because you see it in front of you from the zero life of the product, how it looks, the design. It's easy decision to make. However, when we jump to the durability part, unfortunately here, that picture you see it, it's easy now, but unfortunately you won't see it till 11 years, for example, during the life of the product. So when we talk about durability, for the wisdom of whoever built that house, decide to use to mix material in there between two different suppliers, and you will find that original color is green, gone almost white within 11 years. And it's not something, again, being proud of your project, it's not something after 10 years you want to drive through that building and say, okay, is that my building in there? So making the right decision about durability, I know it's hard. However, the consequences for it, it can be harder. So I put two examples of it here, guys. Again, shed mix products, the door, actually the only benefit I see here for the customer, they can identify where is the door for the shed, because actually it's very obvious for everyone. but you can tell the performance of the product. That's what we call, guys, differential fading. That's you shouldn't have in your buildings. Let's start with the hard decision. Again, I'm putting myself in your shoes, and you want a green, something color like that of pre-painted steel. You've been approached by 2 suppliers. Both of them give you a sample, which is, as you see, and to my eyes, even if I've been in the industry for 33 years, I cannot differentiate. So maybe I will ask about few things like substrate, metal coating, what type of top coat you've got, and all these things. But asking about all these things would give me the all the understanding that's the product gonna perform long-term wise. So here, when you have a look to those 2 samples, it's hard decision. I agree with you. For the best of us, with the most experienced people, you jump to here after 4 years. Unfortunately, it's going to be a bit late because the building already starts to behave like supplier A, for example, or product A, if you want to call it. And it's hard now to fix it and the cost of it and all these things. So if you or me aware of the fact that those 2 samples I put you before, in front of you before, which they are on the top, by the way, of that slide. That's the original color. Supplier A product within 4 years is going to move to that. Supplier B going to be looking like that. I believe if you've got the confidence that the suppliers did their work and they can formulate a product to match at least supplier B, in that case, it's very easy decision. But when you see it initially, it's not easy. So you need to rely on other things to help you doing that. Again, so other things like the supplier, you ask the supplier, do you have supporting data, for example? That's the product is gonna last. Maybe the answer is yes. What sort of data? Some of them, they will tell you, look, it's accelerated data. We did all the work in the lab, and we put a product in a chamber that can simulate UV, for example, or corrosion. My opinion, and again, that's based on my experience, guys, nothing will match outdoor exposure. Nothing will match the knowing the performance of the product in the actual environment. And as you see these slides, the small panel actually on the top, the bottom part of it, actually it's been exposed in the QV, and it's not that much of difference. You put it out for 3 years, only 3 years, and you will find that the sample of supplier A actually gone, literally gone yellow from green. And by the way, contains very nasty material that shouldn't be in there or expose our environment to it. I think I need to be a little bit quicker. So I'll share with you very quickly, guys, testing facility of pre-painted steel or coil coating. And the best thing I can share with you, it's our facility here in Australia. For example, I was talking about accelerated testing and outdoor. It doesn't mean I'm undermining the accelerated testing. Every product going to be launched in the marketplace is expected to be tested in accelerated testing. Literally put in any relevant outdoor exposure site, and it has to be accredited exposure site. And even the accelerated testing has to be accredited for it. Conducting chemical analysis, all the physical testing on it, because the product should be tested from capability to produce, transportation, raw forming, installation, long-term durability, and so on. So if the product missed any of those, I can assure you, you're going to have some sort of difficulty during the life of the product. Just showing you, I'm sure most of you saw that some of the machine is being used. And by the way, that's some of the machine used commonly in testing laboratories. I can't say commonly in coil coaters manufacturing facility, but I would say it's commonly for paint companies. But some coil coater, that's they put their name on their product, they have to conduct the test themselves. You want to imagine the amount of investment that coil coaters put, or mainly, if I'm talking about Guscop steel facility, so that's what I mean, to make sure everything being tested, even during the manufacturing of the product, batch to batch consistency, auditing program, and so on. We're talking about thousands of assessment happens per year. Outdoor exposure, as you see, that's the marine, and as you see, it's accredited site according to a specific standard. It's not a backyard exposure site. And my apology to say that, and again, I'm not undermining, but if I'm building a huge project, I want to make sure that's being tested by accredited exposure sites. Another one, that's UV exposure site, and my apology, I will jump. That's exposure site, again, industrial one. And by the way, guys, keep in mind, those exposure sites, they need to be in the country we're talking about. So you will find that exposure site for products that's going to Malaysia, that pre-painted steel should be exposed in there, and so on, Singapore or Australia or Europe. And again, all that to try to avoid getting a behavior like what you see in front of you here, which is sample A or supplier A in there. And I mean, supplier being exposed for 5 years comparing to 4 years, and that's the behavior of the product. Without doing that work before the product goes to the marketplace, a lot of people are gonna get surprises out of their projects. Again, outdoor exposure. Outdoor exposure. You will find me, I'm a huge fan. Unless being exposed in the environment, there is no guarantee. End of the day, your building won't stay in or won't be exposed in a UV chamber or salt spray, for example, chamber. Actually will be in the environment itself. And that's what happens with the UV, for example, when the product gets exposed outdoor. When you expose it to a marine environment, that's what can happen to some of the products. Exactly the same exposure site and side by side, literally, those samples. And as you see, the back of the sample comparing to the other side. All right, so I know I've got only 3 minutes to go. I'll try. So in conclusion, guys, what we're trying to say is, initially to choose a beautiful, versatile with the finish you want, it's easy. And the hardest part, how can I know that's the product gonna look the same, or actually you're not giving me a disaster after 5, 10, 20 years. And the best way to do it is you need to start by identifying suitable finish for you. And normally that's by approaching the pre-painted steel actually manufacturer and say, okay, that's the look I want, these are the colors I want, and so on, and define your expectation. I mean, if you look, I'm not even going to talk about the due more experience of what you expect out of your building, but the only point that all of us will agree with, I want the building to look good all the time, if possible, for the life of the building, and so on. Identify supplier, or 2 suppliers, or 3 suppliers, and rely on your experience, previous experience with those suppliers. How did they, what was your experience with your products? Was it good or bad? If it's bad, maybe you need to approach them again and ask, did they fix that type? Do they have supporting data for anything or not? If it's good, that's a tick for sure, because that will give me, if I'm in your shoes, the peace of mind to go and sleep and knowing that I'm not going to receive a call for a claim later on. Every published piece of data by those suppliers, please read it carefully because it's important. I'm not saying that will be help you to make the final decision, but it will help you during the decision. Material safety data sheet is important to understand if there is any nasty material in there that can harm the people handling, even your worker, people handling the material and so on, our environment and so on. And then, please take that information and go and talk with the representative of the pre-painted steel. Talk with them, ask them the hard question. Do you have supporting data? Is it outdoor or just lab testing? Is the product designed by you or you actually carrying the warranty of your supplier, for example? So the warranty, you tested the product and the warranty you gave is representing the results of your testing, so that's why you give it, or that's someone else testing. You've got to remember, I was talking about layers. If every layer supplied by another supplier, if any of these layers fail to deliver, for sure it's not designed specifically or tested over the other layer, actually under it or over it. So the whole product has to be tested altogether. Last but not least, please consider a reputable supplier that conducted all the point above testing for your own peace of mind. So my apology, I can't give you a straight answer to say, yeah, if I saw those two green samples with 33 years experience in that field, I would choose one of them. But it's I know in some cases it's hard process, but by the way, it gets easier because again, it gets easier because you start to already identify who's actually or who should supply you pre-painted steel based on your previous experience and reputation, and even talking with your colleagues about their experience of them. Thank you very much for that, guys.
All right, thank you, Fakri, and I, for one, learned some new information from here, and I'm sure our audience are able to extract some of the key insights from our experts here. So before we jump into the next session of which is a dialogue session with Fakri, let me just post one polling question to you. So this will pop up on your screen. And of course, the question is, what questions should you ask when all steel looks the same? Like what Fakri mentioned earlier, the color, if let's say you give me two green colors, it is very hard for one to really know which one is better or which one can perform better. So what are the questions that you should ask after hearing what Fakri presented? What are the questions that you should ask to get more insights about one product? All right, so the polling questions will be open, will be open for another one minute. So yeah, I will be glad if you can fill up the question, and we'll come back to visit the outcome later. So with that, again, thank you, Fakri, for such insightful presentation, and now we go into the dialogue session where I'll pose some questions that perhaps Fakri can come up with what you think about those common questions. So these are questions that are quite commonly asked, especially in Malaysia market, where is asked by various parties like architects or even contractors sometimes. So these are also some of the concerns that we face. So let me just go to the first question. So there are pre-painting and post-painting. All right. So customers sometimes would ask about post-painting onto pre-painted finished products. So from my experience, one of the most common reasons is that they want to touch up any scratches or to conceal any damages caused during the construction stage. So clearly, BlueScope we have a stance of not recommending post painting onto the pre-painted finishes. So could you share the reason behind such guideline?
Yeah, sure. Uh, I mean, before we answer that question, we'd like to ask ourselves, why do we need to do that, the touch-up? And mainly, if I'm correct, mainly to try to cover a small defect, scratches, for example. Keep in mind that, guys, because in my opinion, normally it's small scratches. Otherwise, the whole sheet would be changed if it's big one. So the difference between pre-painted or actually coil coating compared to the touch-up paint, you're talking about a product that's designed to be temperature cured. So you've got components, two components in there. You have to expose them to something like 240 degrees to get them react together and give you the final product in there. Compared to air dry paint, as we call it, which you spray it and you wait or even brush it and wait actually to cure. You will never, two things, you will never be able to match the color identical because actually both of them, they cure differently, and even in a specific stage of their life, maybe they will match, however, they will change color again. The other thing is you will never match the durability. So that during the life of the spray paint, for example, or air dry paint, the whole article, you will find actually the color of the pre-painted steel start to get different to the air dry paint. And as you see, even the picture you've got in there, it's very clear to me. And again, we're trying to cover a small part in their defect, and suddenly you will find the paint spray specifically too, and brushes even. You will find that instead of having a small scratch, now you've got a huge area that actually magnifying the default in there. So that's one, because actually you magnifying the problem, not reducing it. Second part of it, we cannot guarantee what's in the air dry paint, what sort of solvent, what sort of, even if it's water based, would that material attack the pre-painted steel or not. And once you start to attack it, it won't be a problem only with the scratch. Actually, it will be a problem that it can transfer to the whole thing. So that's why we don't recommend it, because it's not solving the problem, and it's not going to solve the problem. Actually, it's going to magnify it for our customers in the marketplace. And the product is designed, I mean, the pre-painted steel should be designed to be capable to leave the time expected out of it with small scratches. It's not going to be a disaster for you guys. Hopefully I answer your question, Rocky.
Thanks, Patrick.
No,
it sounds to me that what you're saying is, if say one building owner, they choose to overpaint it, be sure to make that decision with this in mind. Meaning, if you would choose to overpaint the scratches, then be sure to expect the current different colors are going to differentiate from the original pre-painted finishes, and the appearance might be magnified with all those pre-painted areas as compared to a scratch. Yeah. So of course, here I would like to pose another questions to what you mentioned earlier. If let's say there's a scratch, right? Is there any way that we can determine how severe is the scratch, and whether we should pre-paint it or not? We should post-paint it or not? Is there such guideline?
Again, from my opinion, if a customer having a problem like that, 100% please approach a technical person within the pre-painted steel. And again, it's matter of the pre-painted or the pre-painter actually, or the coil coater cannot guarantee what sort of paint is used, what sort of touch-up. So that type of things, it can actually take some time because they need to go back to the main laboratories and conduct some testing and all these things. It's again, don't stop from asking the question, and if we can answer it, we will. If we can't, we'll come back and say, unfortunately, it's going to take few years actually to understand the effect of that air dry paint on our product.
Thanks, Fakri.
No.
So with that, we'll move on to the next question. So the next question is about standard and non-standard colors. So we have actually encountered numerous numbers of non-standard colors requests throughout Malaysia. So, however, sometimes we will reject the request due to technical requirements according to the specific product guideline. So my question is, what is happening behind the background that leads us to decide whether we should produce that non-standard color or not? Yeah.
Sure. All right. Normally, new colors or bright colors or any color actually mainly relying on most important component in there, which is the type of pigments it's used in our coating or the pre-painted steel. And if that type of pigments not evaluated or not available in the marketplace, and it's just been available for the last year, so still under evaluation, or it's been evaluated and showing bad results. So that's when actually we'll come back and say, sorry, we can't supply that. We can't put our name and our brand on that color. And actually by doing that, we're helping the project owner and the designer to understand the performance of that product. It's not gonna meet his expectation. And the other part of it, guys, if you approach 2 or 3 coil coaters and one of them said, sorry, it's very risky color for your project, the other 2, they say yes. That, if I'm in your shoes, the first thing will trigger me to go back to the 2 they said yes and say, ask all the question about, so do you have similar color in the marketplace? Do you have a history of it? Do you know how, when it failed, how it's gonna fail? What would be the color of the failure? And accordingly, if that's acceptable for you, maybe you take the decision, yes, you know what, I'll go with that. Or you say, okay, maybe I need to go back to the one said that we can't match the color and ask them for other options. And this option, guys, it will be, I know some corporate colors you can change, full stop. But some of this option is, maybe the coil coater will come back and say, you know what, we can change the color by 1 unit, which visual eyes won't tell the difference. Even going to 3 units, building to building, you won't see that much of difference, but the product will perform very well based on that. So again, I believe end of the day, you need to talk with the technical people. It can be taking some time, sorry, I'm putting my gloves here, to have those type of discussion. However, it can save you a lot of time dealing with a problem. So for example, I've got a couple of samples here in front of me, guys. For example, we get a request, for example, or a coil coater get a request for a color like that. Orange color is one of the very critical colors, for example. And one of the suppliers said that, sorry, we don't recommend that color because the behavior of it won't be as good as normal coating we send to you. The other one said that, yes, we can make it. And you asked the hard question, which is, so you test it, it's been tested and you know how it's performing. So yeah, test it. And here is the QUV exposure. So the UV exposure put in a chamber of 2000 hours. 2000 hours, it's very long time, guys, in a UV chamber. The difference between the top and the bottom is that area, sorry, that area it's exposed to 2000 hours, that area it's not. So as you see the difference, it's not huge. If I put it side by side, you will see, I don't know if you can see it or not, it depends on the angle, but lost the gloss a bit, but it's still orange. It's not disaster. However, that's the one actually willing to give you the product. However, you go to the first supplier and say, so why are you saying you can't? Because that supplier said that when we exposed it outdoor, that's what we got. And as you see, it's almost completely different colors. So one relying on accelerated testing, the other one relying on outdoor. And by the way, that one, it's only 4 years out there. And my expectation, give it another 2 years and will behave completely different. So that's why, guys, actually, in my opinion, if we as a company sometimes go back to you and say, look, we can't supply that color, or even other coil coater says, look, we can't supply that color, not because we cannot manufacture. Yes, we can, 100%. You've got my word for it. It doesn't matter the color. If you want to make coil coating out of it, you can reasonably, 99.9%. However, would it be classified as a coil coating that should be put in a building and last for more than a year? I'm not sure if that. I know that I'm talking too much, guys, but can I show you another sample? It's not bright color, all right? It's a texture finish product. And again, one said, look, we haven't tested that product. I cannot guarantee what's gonna happen in there. We need to develop it. And that's why developing product all the time, it's very, very important in there. But other supplier give you that one, both of them very similar, but that's the behavior of the product. I'm talking about 3 years outdoor. Can you see the difference? I don't know if you can see it on the camera or not. Forget about that one. Have a look to the bottom here. Do you know what's the area? That's where we hold the panel. So that area is covered, not exposed. So that's the original, and the whole panel being stripped of the painting. So when we say, no, we don't recommend it, that means because we know the product and the behavior of the product, which we helping you to make sure that your project or your building is gonna look better with actually as during the life actually of it. So hopefully I answer your question.
Thanks, Fakri. So it seems like
All right.
The product so-called guideline is subjected to different companies, right? Different company can say, yes, we can do this color, but the guideline will be totally different from another company. And what you are showing is just one example, I guess, of say the orange color. It can differ from one company to another company when they say, yes, I can do this, right? And how long do you think normally you will need, to reach to the conclusion that certain color cannot be matched in such a product guideline, for example, right?
It's look, it depends on how active the coil coating or paint. So again, I'm talking about my own experience in Blue Scope Steel. We never stop evaluating new pigments in the marketplace, new colors, and that's why you will find that our answer sometimes when you guys send to us a request for a specific color, we'll come very quickly back to you and say, no, we can't make it because it's very bad material, it won't actually meet customer expectation, or yes, actually it's been evaluated. So it takes time. We're talking about to evaluate every pigment individually. It can take between 3 years to 5 years to understand. So we have to be proactive. All that work needs to be done before customer approach us and start asking for these colors. That's why very rarely, I can't recall it once, actually my life working here, we said, we know nothing about these pigments. Actually, we we're not paint company, by the way, but we know a lot about paints, and we never stop evaluating raw materials, even not in the raw materials we use, which is paint. Even we go levels down from there to understand how every ingredient in that paint will behave if we change, and pigments is one of them.
It sounds like a tough job and a thorough one. Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun. Let me put it that way. I'm enjoying it for the last 33 years. So that's for that. It's fun to know a lot about these products we put in the marketplace. And the other thing, can I add one small thing very quickly, Rocky? If we don't do that, the learning from mistakes is very costly, because all what we need, or any company or painted steel, make one mistake, and the problem with coil coating is you don't see it. If it's not flexible, you will see it immediately. If you cracking, you see it immediately. But durability, it takes years, and sometimes it takes up to 5 years to start to see the problem. You imagine the cost of supplying in the marketplace 5 years, and then discover that you or I did a mistake 5 years ago, and now it's huge cost. And that's when I was saying affordability. Can we afford mistake like that? No, full stop.
Thank you, Fakri.
No,
so let's move on to the next question. All right, so the next question is about just now what you presented, outdoor exposure and accelerated tests. They are actually still lacking emphasis on outdoor exposure tests over the accelerated tests, like salt spray test, for example, especially at end user, the owner or even architect, sometimes consultants. So can you share some examples of how outdoor exposure test results differ from that of accelerated tests? Because I'm sure just now you showed some example, and how do you decide whether a product can withstand a certain weather?
All right. You mentioned that I'm the responsible person actually for approval products, and that's globally, by the way, guys. So not only in Australia, in Malaysia, and in any of our food step. Before I talk about the difference between the two tests, actually, I want you to know no product will go to the marketplace unless, again, from my side, unless it's being tested, accelerate testing. So, and again, I'm not undermining the accelerated testing. It's part, it's a tick, a small tick. So to make sure, and the reason for it, actually, we do it, because if you're evaluating literally thousands of samples, it's very hard to put every sample of them outdoor. Yes, we've got thousands of them outdoor, but if I test every sample, we won't have any exposure site can accommodate all this thing. So that test normally is used as an elimination tool to say that product, even if it's behaving that way, it's not gonna do its job outdoor. So it's being used as an elimination process. No product, again, will go to the marketplace unless it's being tested in the outdoor environment. That's from my side. All right, so, and I give you a very small example just a minute ago about that orange color. So, again, if someone shows me that color and says, okay, that's the outdoor, that's the QUV testing. And by the way, 2,000 hours, again, it's not time some product collapse completely under it. So that product, it's behaving that way. And I'm telling you something from my own experience. You've got, there is some paint chemist capable of formulating a product that can perform very well in accelerated testing. It's the nature of it. It can, yes, perform in there. You put it outdoor, it's completely different story. So my question to you, let me put the other side of the glove. That's, again, the accelerated testing, that's the outdoor. Would you, if you are in my position, rely only on that one, or you insisted that I need the product to be exposed in the natural? Can I give you another example? That product, it's one of the best products for Europe. All right. Again, without mentioning any names. However, if you put it outdoor, I don't know if you can see the amount of dirt it's collected in there. Can you see the difference in color in there? And that's, by the way, exposed in Australia only 13 weeks. So that originally started there, and now it's behaving that way after 13 weeks. One of the best in Europe. And you compare it to the product that's designed for that environment, here it is. So I know I'm going back to the same thing of outdoor. So if I take that product, instead of putting it outside in the environment, put it in a chamber like UV or salt spray or any chamber, closed chamber, how I'm gonna collect that much of dirt on it? We don't normally, I never knew that we put dirt inside the chamber actually to start showing. And again, very quickly for you guys, why that one, it works in Europe, but it doesn't work in the Asian country and Australia, because of high temperature. Once it's being exposed to high temperature and humidity, start to get very soft, collect all the dirt. So I'll go back to the same, to what I said before. The product should be designed for the intended environment for it. So that's difference. I mean, if I put that one in a UV chamber, no, I don't have dirt in the UV chamber to tell me the product is going to behave that.
Thanks, Becky. So it sounds to me that what one of the examples that you show is that if you test the product in the chamber, whether it being tested in Europe or in Australia or in Malaysia, it would give you somewhat of the same result because it's controlled within the chamber. And the critical part is when we test it in the relevant environment. Is that correct?
You are correct. It has to be tested in the relevant environment. So again, I'll give you an example. Products that's been supplied to Asian countries, some of the Asian countries, they have to have a resistance to what we call a tropical discoloration. Tested here in Australia only, and you won't get that information because we don't have that in Australia. Tested in Europe give you different. So that in every environment, there is some factors, it can be applicable on all environments, like high UV, for example. So if the product works in high UV environment, you know, in any other country, high UV is gonna work. But there is some factors, it's not available except in that country. High acid, for example, acid rain in some area, and so on. If all these things not be considered, I believe that won't deliver good results for the pre-painted steel customers.
Thanks, Fakri. So another example is just now the orange example that you've shown, right? You mentioned that certain chemists they can formulate it to pass the QUV test or UV test. So does it mean that it's highly manipulatable when you just consider the UV test and not also consider the outdoor exposure test?
100%. But don't get me wrong, they don't do it intentionally. They do it because they didn't have the experience. I mean, a lot of people, when you talk with them, they will argue, so what's wrong with UV anyway, or UV chamber? Salt spray. Actually, salt spray, for example, a lot of people misunderstand the salt spray. It's a test that's, in my opinion, doesn't represent any of the environment. You tell me, guys, how many environments in the world that's got salt spray or salt get sprayed in your product 24/7 without the effect of the sun on it, without the effect of drying, without the effect of rain, to wash it every now 24/7 exposed to salt, salt, salt. By the way, salt spray sometimes can mislead you in some areas for a specific substrate, and again, the right test for the right product. Some substrate you expose it to 24 hours humidity and salt spray, and they behave very well. You put them outdoor, it's completely different behavior comparing to what you get. It can mislead, but I doubt it very much if anyone, and again, sorry if I implied that that's someone manipulating anything, but I mean, product like that, if you put it in salt spray, sorry, to hold it, actually that one will perform very well. Unfortunately, I don't have the banner, but you put it in salt spray, behave very well. You put it outdoor, it's completely different from the front even. And as you see, it's almost the whole coating is coming off in there. So it doesn't tell me anything, me personally, except I need to ask the question. Is the product being exposed in the right environment? Do you know? So there is some importers, by the way, some people actually import material coming from different countries and say, so what's the difference? Yeah, okay, if that product manufactured in completely different country, do you know if that product being exposed to the condition in Malaysia? And you need to think about it. Why do we need why would they do it? If maybe that's the first order for their material in Malaysia and coming from completely different country, and that Europe, for example, and that country doesn't have high humidity, high temperature, the UV even exposure and all these things. So ask the question and don't be surprised that if the answer says no, but it's been tested in Europe. It's exactly like Europe. That's the best place to test any product, which is fair enough, maybe under a specific condition. If I want to make sure a product gonna perform well under very low temperature, it can be raw formed actually at 0 temperature and all these things, yes, I would send it to Europe to be tested, and I formulate it that way to give me that flexibility. But if I want to study dirt retention and tropical discoloration, I would send it to another country in Asia to make sure it's exposed to it. So hopefully, as I told you guys, I'm very passionate about coil coating, and I can speak about it for days. And look, my apology for talking too much anyway.
Thanks, Fakri. If I were to sum up what you mentioned, it is that for outdoor exposure, it is more relevant if, let's say, it is relevant because you test it to the particular environment that that product is going to be installed on. Whereas for accelerated tests, it is sometimes somehow misleading in the sense that it could present you much more better outcome, even though in actual it might not be the case. Yeah. So moving on to our last topic for this dialogue session before we move into the questions and answers asked by our audience. So they are actually still lacking. There are actually still increasing worries about the legitimacy of the test results and the relevance of tests to be posted on the technical data sheets. And any tips that you may have about studying the technical data sheets and evaluate whether it's relevant when used in the actual project.
Sure. Again, guys, it's hard, specifically if I decided on 2 or 3 coil coaters and I get their technical data sheet and I have a look and found one of them almost identical to the other one. The first thing I'm going to ask myself, which one is true and which one actually being copied? from the other one. And again, I'm not saying that they do it intentionally, but available data in the marketplace, they want to be the same format or something like that. I mean, the last thing I want to say that someone will do it, and I cannot imagine it, someone will mislead their customer. But sometimes because if the person doesn't know better than that, maybe they will decide to go that way. So if two of them identical, please don't stop and ask that the technical representative of each one of them ask about, is everything written in that technical data sheet? Is the testing and results conducted by your company or not? And see, if they say yes, that's fantastic. Maybe you need to dig a little bit deeper and see when they talk about outdoor exposure, which area, what results they were getting. I won't get to the results too much, but maybe I will get into the area of actual exposure side. Is it accredited? Accredited by another body, like, for example, the Australian standard. Is it actually that exposure side available in the Australian standard or not, or the Malaysian standard, and so on? So that's a starting point. However, everything written in the data sheet can help us. So, I mean, that data sheet you show now, I believe if they write on it, says that's the product designed by, ask the question. I mean, that's very good start. Designed by the coil coater. That means actually being involved in every step of formulating that product, every layer for it. It's designed by them. Very good possibility. It's designed by them. It's exclusive for them. Nobody else actually can offer that product to you. So ask the question, what do you mean by design by you? Which area are you being involved in there? Is it the manufacturer of the steel or the metal coating or the top coat or the backing coat? Ask the question. You're not going to lose anything. End of the day, it's your project. It's your baby, as they say. You want to see it looking good during the lifespan of it. Other part of it is, for example, does it follow a specific standard? So if we're talking about, okay, we're following the Australian standard, okay, what does that mean? What type in the Australian standard? Is that credible standard for you? You've got to remember, if any coil coater put a standard following a specific standard, legally they have to have data to support the product meets that standard. And I know, I'm sorry to use that word, but I am being specifically of signing on products going to the marketplace. I can assure you from my side, even if it's written there, the product meets that standard, that some pre-painted steel manufacturer, which I believe 100% I'm the one actually sign on the product anyway, their requirement even higher than that standard. And again, its reputation, the name of the product has to be protected to make sure that's not only meeting that standard, actually the standard of that brand, it's far higher than the standard what you see. So what you need to ask yourself, can I see that's in the technical data sheet written any standard that's the product meets that? And from there goes through the results. Is that results acceptable to you or not? If the building looks around 3 units darker, for example, in whatever 4 or 5 years or something like that, would that be acceptable or not? If it is acceptable, take it and so on, and move to the next one. Please read the fine writing at the end, because it's important even for blue scope. If you don't read it, you won't understand exactly what is your right and what's not your right, how the product should be treated during storage, during the installation, and all these things. Read it and see what's written in there. Anything that you don't understand, highly recommended. Just go to the technical representative of the company and ask them to explain it to you. Hopefully I answer your question.
Thanks, Fakri. So for me, I think the important thing as a market-facing person, I would say is, the clients should have a back and forth questions about the technical data sheet about the product. Don't just take it for its face value. There would be a lot of reasons why it is in the technical data sheets, and definitely there's backing that's been tested. And I think in our previous discussion, Fakri, I think you also mentioned about the importance of accreditation as what some of the labs would have. So can you explain a bit about why is accredited lab so important in terms of producing this technical data sheet and how reliable it is?
It's in my opinion, it's very, very important, and it's not only the accreditation. Actually, the accreditation and the capability to continue to get accredited. So, for example, that certificate I put in front of you, we're talking about 1958. It's very long time the laboratory being accredited, and it's not long time. Actually, it's being accredited every. What happens with the accreditation of NATA, the National Australian Test Association, is they will send you experts in laboratories actually condition and keeping record, and if anything goes wrong, how you capture the information, how you make sure that's been corrected, and all these things. They send it to you every 2 years. So actually with you, that one actually 2nd of October 2019, the next one, I've been informed actually by the guys in the lab that is going to happen actually next week. On Monday started second one. During those 2 years, we have to audit the lab ourselves. So we'll get people from different areas actually of the company to go to the lab and ask all the hard questions. Where do you keep that record? And show me these results, okay? How it's being captured by whom, who did the assessment, is that person accredited or not, is that person being trained or not. So that's very important to know how reliable the data you're getting from that supplier. If you don't have it, that's exactly what I was talking about, Rocky. If someone take a piece of data and say, look, we did the UV testing and salt spray, and here is the results. And again, we agreed that's not misleading, but it is very good possibility that person, because they didn't go through the accreditation, they didn't know what they can communicate, what they can't communicate, what's true and what's not during their testing. You can't tell how relevant that data to the actual building is going to be in the environment itself. And again, most people, I mean, if people selling something, most of the time they will find that saying, oh, it's fantastic, it's amazing. You need a third party to confirm that that testing facility is accredited and actually doing everything right in relation to testing.
Thanks, Fakri. It's well said. Well, I just had a chance to look at the polling questions that we posted earlier. I'm glad that it is quite consistent with what you presented. So the question earlier was about the questions. What kind of questions should I ask if, let's say, all the steel looks the same, right? In terms of colors, in terms of the touching feel, and physical properties and whatnot. So I think out of our audience, most of them actually answered technical data sheets, and some, the second highest is about the metal coating. So I think it is, our audience put a high emphasis on the technical data sheet, and I think
Yeah.
just to put a conclusion to this particular topic about the technical data sheet and how you can evaluate it is that you need to ask uh, more specific questions to what you want to know. For example, if you want to know about the corrosion performance, be sure to drill down deeper into the corrosion performance test, be it a salt-free test or be it a cyclic corrosion or even outdoor exposure test. So those are the things that are important. So for example, if you want to know about uh, how it is produced, what kind of standard it is produced, then drill down to those particular information in the technical data sheet. So that is, I think, what I summarized from what you shared, Factory. And yeah, so with that, we conclude the dialogue session and let's move on to the Q&A session. So Factory, I'll post some questions considering the time, I'll post some questions that are asked by our audience and perhaps you can give us your view about those. All right, so the first question, how many types of coating we have for selection? What is the life cycle of each coating? So I think this is by Surveyor Ng. Okay. Okay, so I think his question would be about there are a lot of polymer coatings, right, Factory? And our audience is asking how many types of coatings do we have for selection in the market, and what is the life cycle of each coating? It seems like a really big topic, I guess, but maybe you can take a chance of answering or give some insights about this question itself.
Yeah, look, it's very big subject. Now, hopefully I understood it the right way, the question. That's if we're talking about different technology of coating, again, it depends on which layer we're talking about. Are we talking about only the top coat layer or the primer layer or the backing coat? If all of them, my view all the time, never make your decision based on only one layer, because if it's one layer, it can be very dangerous. If you use the wrong primer under a specific technology, it can be very bad. And the best example I can give you in the old days, and some companies still paying claims for it till now, which is the elimination of Bvdf coating over epoxy primer. The Bvdf is still the same Bvdf, however the primer was different, but the whole system collapsed because the compatibility and the erosion and all the things happening to the primer under the top coat. If you ask me how many technology of top coat, if focus on top coat, for example, we're talking about it depends on how, top tiers products, I would say polyester and Bvdf and silicone modified polyester. If that's, hopefully I'm answering the right question here. Can I put all of them in category to say which one better than the other? Based on my knowledge, it depends each one of them how it's been formulated, how compatible with the layer under it, how compatible with the type of steel is used in there. If you're talking about polyester, in my opinion, polyester, it's one of the best now. Is it equivalent or better than the other two? Again, it depends how it's been formulated, how that's what I recommend myself. It's Blue Scope polyester, which is formulated exactly to give you that effect. What could be the problem with different technology? Leave the polyester out, because I believe problems in there, it's not even worth talking about it at this stage, if there is any. The only thing maybe I would say polyester versus Bvdf, maybe Bvdf a little bit flexible or something like that. But again, it depends. If I'm sending it to Norway, that could be a problem. But if it's in Malaysia or Australia, that's not a problem. If you're talking about the other coating, Bvdf, for example, you're talking about, be careful because a lot of people say, oh, that's the best. Okay, if it's not formulated right, it can be a disaster. Very low UV, it needs a very specific primer, 100 sheet undercutting. I don't know if you heard that before or not, but you put it outdoor and you will find the whole coating actually separating in marine environment and so on in there. Silicone modified polyester, I know for a fact it is polyester, and they put a specific amount of silicone into it to make it look better maybe in the first few years. However, erosion rate is very high, very high. The film that you've got in there, it can reduce to nothing within few years, subject to how it's been formulated. I know it's hard. I mean, if you can, you go back to the supplier and say, oh yeah, that's the best Bvdf. I think, or polyester, or I think that part that can help you a lot if that coating designed by them, because that means it's compatible with the whole system. If it's not designed by them and it's a matter of people going to them, a big company going to them and say, look, trust me, that one is the best seller in Europe or in a different country or something like that, that's good. But the product is not designed by me and it's not suitable for the environment that I intended actually to put the product in. Hopefully, I was trying to maybe give you an example of it, but I mean that sample, it will be one of them. It's very thick coating. A lot of people would say, you know what, the more the better. Be careful, guys. Very careful about that. Because in coil coating, it doesn't mean the more, the better. Actually, the more can help in one area and can give you a disaster in another area, like sheet undercutting. The whole film maybe will look all right, but you're going to collect it from the walk side of the building because all of it actually being separated. But it will be maybe one piece, not a small piece. Look, it's the balance between every layer and how the product is designed, and is it being tested or not, tested by the coil coater or tested by the paint company that's recommending that to them. Hopefully I answered the right question for you.
Thanks, Pekka. Yeah, I just saw Surveyor mention that it's about the top coat, and I think just to add to what you mentioned, when just now you mentioned about Bvdf or even polyester or SMP, each of them actually has a wide variety of formulas, and like you mentioned, it needs to be depending on the formulation of it. So there are literally, I can say, unlimited amount of selections, but the one that is formulated with the type of primer, the type of pigment and all that, it matters to the final product. So yeah,
you're 100% right, and that's reinforcing my point again, Rocky, that please talk with the technical representative of the company, because I mean maybe the project asking for a specific top coat. However, when you talk with the representative of the company in the environment like Malaysia or Australia or wherever the country, they would say, yes, but we recommend that for that project. We recommend Bvdf or recommend polyester or recommend. So talk again, go back and talk with the technical person. And even if that person doesn't have the answer for you, I'm 100% sure they would say, look, let me go back to the technical guys or the laboratory or the research or the innovation lab and come back to you with a recommendation on that. Thanks.
Very good. I think we still have a lot of questions asked by our audience, but let me just try and condense some of them so that we can address them all together. All right, so the second question is from Mark. He's asking if, let's say, there's any, all things age, right? And eventually all things will break down. how do we know when? I think how do we know when is the time to refurbish it, and if so, what are the ways to recommend to refurbish it, either recoat or total replacement? Yeah. So I think this if I may answer this question, Gregory, is that
Yes, please. Yes, please.
yeah, the recoating or total replacement, that depends on your objective. As what Factory mentioned earlier, if let's say you want to repaint it, by all means, but you need to have an expectation from the post painting from the paint supplier themselves. So alternatively, you can choose total replacement. So if let's say you're asking about the matter of what and how, then it has to be coming from the paint supplier. So yeah. So Factory, if you may add to this question, or is there any?
No, well covered. Well covered, Rocky. Thank you.
All right. So the next question is from Joachim. So okay, so I think what you are asking, Joachim, is that if let's say coming from a contractor's perspective, if let's say there's a scratch, then client would definitely ask the so-called contractor to replace the whole sheet because it has been scratched. So and we understand that it's almost impossible in certain condition that the roof sheet without any scratch. So would it be possible? So that's the question. Would it be possible to touch up with a fine brush with paint provided by the manufacturer? I think Factory, just the question is whether it should be touch up, with a fine brush instead of a whole surface, and provided by the paint supplier. So what is your view on that? Instead of covering like a whole surface or a larger surface to cover it, just touch up the scratch area. What is your view on that? Yeah.
I believe that's a far better option for sure. That's no question, because actually you're not contaminating the whole surface. So it is far better option. Is it safe option? Again, it depends on the touch-up you're using and the way it's been applied. It's matter of, again, keep in mind that there is possibility that touch-up, it can attack the surface or the paint under it. And there is possibility actually will look different with time, and it will get even more gaps between the performance of the touch-up and pre-painted steel with time. And keep that in mind. And again, it's just talk with the relevant person. Sorry, my apology. It's one of the things that's you need help in that technical area. Please talk with the representative of the company. But to answer your question, is it better? Yes, it is better in my opinion.
All right, so it means it's better to cover the small area compared to cover a bigger area. So it seems less obvious, as what I'm getting.
That's it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. All right. So so the next question is from Ting Chuan. So he is a I'm not sure whether it is a he or she, but it's a contractor and engineer. So normally, if let's say, so his question is that if let's say the supplier claim to that material can last 3 years with say for example, it has been tested for accelerated test, right? Through the accelerated test, and then claim that it can last for 30 years. His question is how relevant it is, how accurate is the accelerated test compared to the actual natural process, so-called weathering test. Whether you can correlate those two together by just doing the accelerated test.
Yeah, look, honestly, I would have been multi-billionaire if I can come up with the equation to say you put the product actually in AUV chamber will be equivalent, 2,000 hour equivalent for 10 years. I wish if I can do that, or actually in Q-Fog equivalent. There is a lot of people saying, okay, if the requirement for a specific standard, like Australian standard, saying, okay, you need to expose it for 4,000 hours, for example, in the cyclic corrosion machine, because not for any reason except that's okay, the 4,000 hours, it's long time. Try to eliminate the very bad products that cannot actually perform at all. Does that guarantee 4,000 hours equivalent to 20 years corrosion, for example? No. That's why all the time, guys, I was saying, the pre-painted actually steel manufacturer, you need to do that too. And I show you an example. How would QV chamber introduce dirt, for example? We don't understand the environment. If that coating goes softer and due temperature and humidity start to attack it, the combination between everything, guys, too. How can I combine UV and salt spray and humidity at the same time? How can I expose all this? And by the way, that happens in the natural actually environment. The natural environment, you've got the building, start to salt spray from the ocean or the sea actually on it, and then it rains, it wash it off, and now it's sunny, high temperature and UV get attacked, and it's cycling happening in there. So yes, accelerated testing, it's important, but it's important to eliminate the very bad products. 3 years, if the product exposed for 3 years, if it goes, I'll show it to you guys again. That's 3 years, guys. Started there. All right, so, I mean, if the product behaving like that 3 years, would that be acceptable to you or not? That's why it is very important. And again, a lot of people saying, okay, for example, we give warranty for whatever, 20 years on a specific properties or 12 years on another specific property. Does that mean we test every product for 12 years? No, you can't. You can't if you introduce new product you tested for that long. But the good thing is, you do the physical testing on it. You do the accelerated testing on it. You put it outdoor for 5 years. However, 5 years, it's not 12 years. You do chemical analysis on the resin, on the pigments, in everything to understand it. Is the pigments it's used in the product equivalent to another pigment that's been exposed for the last 50 years? And you start to talk about the chemistry and the relationship. If you allow me, it's exactly like, guys, you know the puzzles that the kids actually play with it, with small pieces, put it together to make a picture of something? That's exactly what we do here. So the accelerated testing, that's a small piece. We put it in there. Chemical analysis, that's another piece. Outdoor exposure, another piece. If there is any of those pieces missing, there is very good possibility that product is not going in the marketplace because it didn't satisfy, it didn't make the picture for us, or the final picture that's going to the marketplace. It's not a matter of one test, guys. It's very easy for people to mislead, or actually people to get misled. I mean, if I'm going and someone, a big scientist telling me, oh yeah, but we did the QUV testing, and it's easy, but the rest of the question, okay, so the QUV testing equivalent to the Malaysian environment. Can you tell us that? Do you have a product of similar color that you exposed it for 2,000 hours in the UV in a chamber, and you've got a building somewhere that's 3 years old? Can you show it to us, at least? Keeping in mind, not all the color are gonna behave the same way. All right, so just be careful in there.
Thanks, Fakri. So just to answer Ping Chuan's question, it means that we are not able to correlate between accelerated test and the so-called natural weathering test. And what we do is accelerated tests act as a funnel to so-called funnel to narrow down those absolutely horrible performing products, so that we can focus on those that really matters and can have a potential of lasting very long, and then we do that in the natural environment. And yeah, so that requires resources, as what you heard from Bakri. And yeah, the simple answer is no, we can't correlate that. Yeah, so I hope that gives you an understanding of how important it is that we need to constantly evaluate from all angles, like what Bakri mentioned, to give a full puzzle, to have the puzzle assembled, to see the full picture. All right. Okay, so let's move fast. So I see some of the questions that are relevant to threading, but because we have so many questions, so I'm going to answer those questions after this session, but I will just pick those that are relevant to this topic. Okay, so all right, so the next question is, all right, I'll pick this question from Jack. So is there any particular color that can fade faster, and isn't blue color, for example, because this is widely asked in some of the forums. So some people will say blue color sometimes will discolor faster compared to, for example, red color. So what is your view on this? And yeah, could you share a bit of insight on this? Yeah.
Sure. You're asking a very hard question, guys. Again, that's for your credit. Honestly, I normally get that much of question about the technical side of it. Look, it doesn't matter the color itself, but there is a small rule. Is it 100%? No. The brighter the color, the harder to match. All right, so, and specifically for coil coating. So if bright blue, can we make blue? 100%. Would that blue meet customer expectation? 100%. Can we make every shade of blue? No. And it will be very dangerous for our customer. Red. Can we make red? Yes. Same thing, exactly. So it depends on which area of the color, that color you mentioned, blue, for example. If it's very bright blue, if it doesn't mean we can't, or that repainted steel can make it. They can make it, but it has to be formulated very well, and they need to understand very well how to formulate it. So even the same pigment, we're talking about the same blue pigments used, but with combination with other pigments can give you completely different. So end of the day, don't take it as a fact, blue is very hard to match, or red, or the only fact I can give you in coil coating is bright colors. It's a little bit harder to formulate. Again, to answer that question very quickly.
So just
blue color.
I see.
Blue color. One of them formulated correct, the other one is not. They almost the same. All right? That one is this. And we're talking about 3 years exposure. Sorry about that. That one is this. 3 years. Identical exposure side. Actually, they were side-by-side samples. If I can hold it that way. One is behaving that way, and the other one behaving that way. And both of them blue colors, both of them almost identical shade. But it's formulated, and can I show another thing, guys? Can you see that's the glove? That's what we're getting out of it. It's very heavy chalk out of it. Is that because it's blue color? No, because it's not formulated right. That's all. So the know-how, very important, guys. I will never say all or some of the pre-painted steel manufacturer, they manufacture bad product all the time. I believe the most important feature you want in your supplier, that's they know why the product behave bad, and they know how to formulate a product to satisfy. If a coil coater give you a good color and bad color, and you need to ask the question, if they know how to formulate a good color, why are they putting a bad color in the marketplace? If they know, unless they don't know. So that's the know-how part. The know-how part that you need literally 50 years of knowledge and exposure, and understand of the chemistry of the polymer coating using. Hopefully I answer your question. It's not blue, it's not red, it's how they put together. And that's why, guys, sorry, I will go back. That's why sometimes we go back to the customer and say, if we move a couple of units that way, we're gonna be able to give you a product that's can meet your expectation.
Okay, thanks, Fakri. So you directly have also answered my questions because I have, some perception, underlying perception of the same assumption as well. So I'm glad you share that with us. Yeah, I see there are some questions that are relevant to quality control, so I won't address that on this platform. So the next one is, all right, this one, Alan. So you mentioned brand, all right. So I'll try not to go into a specific brand, but what he mentioned is that, for example, polyester, or what you refer to as super polyester. How do you compare that to today's SMP? Meaning, in terms of technology, the existing polyester technology versus the existing SMP technology. What is which one is better in terms of the durability, and also comparing that with the PVDF in terms of color retention? So, of course, I think before Fakri, you go into answering those questions, I think Alan, Fakri already mentioned that earlier, there are many types of there are PVDF that are formulated very differently. So I think having that in mind, I think that answers part of your questions. But in general speaking, I think first question first, how does SMP, the existing technology of SMP versus the existing technology of polyester, so-called super polyester?
It's very hard. I mean, everyone can call their polyester sober polyester. Everyone can call it ultra durable polyester. I mean, naming something, it's not hard to put in there, and it depends again on the country and the condition. It can actually perform in under that condition in there. It's exactly like we're saying which spray paint better than the other. Honestly, you can't. The only thing is, if you trial a product and you've got the history of it, in some case, my experience, again, sorry guys, I'm not, and again, I'm talking about my baby, Blue Scope polyester. It's one of the best, literally, because it's tested and all things. And I'm sorry to say it, why here in that form, because it's formulated. I know everything about it. It's formulated. It's compared to silicone modified polyester, compared to Bvdf, and so on, and compared under that condition and that. I know only about that polyester. But if we're talking about polyester versus other polyester, there is thousands of them. Silicone modified polyester, or SMP, is it 95-5 or 80-20, or what's the mix? How it's been formulated? Is it a cold blend or a hot blend? There is a lot you can. Don't take it on face value. That's when someone tell you silicone modified polyester or SMB, it's the same anyway to anyone else. However, based on our knowledge, when we compare BlueScope polyester, for example, to available silicone modified polyester in the marketplace, one of the things that you need to be very careful about, guys, is the erosion rate of the silicone modified polyester. And that's how it works. The siliconization to it, actually, it gets used during the life of it. And it's 80-20, you already lost 20% of it during the life of the product, and so on. Every product and every designer, they need to make sure they design a total product. Top coat, primer, pre-treatment, suitable substrate for it, and all these things. And they can use anything. That's why maybe you need to approach, again, the technical representative and say, I'd like to see some difference between, for example, if you approach BlueScope steel representative, ask them for, okay, can you show me something between your polyester and Bvdf? That's available in the marketplace. Can we guarantee that's every Bvdf in the marketplace? No, it's a Bvdf supplied by a Reputable paint company. That's their Bvdf versus the polyester design by BlueScope in there. Again, guys, we're more than happy to help in that area. However, it's very critical question. It's got a lot of data. We have literally years of data to prove that type of points. It's a matter of, I'll go back to the same point. You need to understand, is that work is done or not? And done in actual environment or not? And why would a coil coater recommend it for me?
Thanks, Fakri. Yeah,
no,
so to put it back to Alan, there's no simple answer for that question. So it is always case-to-case basis, or sometimes even color-to-color basis, I would say. So yeah, I hope that gives you a certain understanding rather than an answer, so that you can think from that frame of mind. All right, so I think that there are two more questions, Fakri, that I would like to pose to you. Of course, one of them I will answer, take the chance to answer, because I think it's not really relevant to this topic, but it is good to highlight as well, because we are talking about performance in actual environment. So this is posted by Joachim. So what soft performance is expected for galvanized, so galvanum products in alkaline environments such as lime or cement production facilities that often have lime or cement built up on the metal roof sheeting? So my take on this is that I mean, we have all these outdoor exposure test sites, right, that are accredited to be, for example, C4, C5, and so on. But I think if, let's say, you were to come to a specific like cement production facilities, I would say we would encourage you to actually go down to the studies and perhaps involve a supplier like us to study better how this environment is going to affect the product itself. So it's always case-to-case basis. From experience, cement production can mean a lot of different part of the process. Some of them could be a very benign kind of process. Some of them could be very aggressive. So it is always case-to-case, yeah. And we would, not generalize in this manner. So yeah, I hope that gives you another understanding. All right. So last question, Fakri. Does high gloss finish would have a better or a faster color fading compared to low gloss finish? And what is your view or your comment on this? Yeah.
All right. No, but it won't have faster color. I mean, it will be very similar in a relation of color fading. But the tricky part, guys, is which is tricky to our eyes, visual eyes. If you're talking about, you put two samples, one of them high gloss versus Another sample that's lower gloss, or actually the gloss started 80 gloss and gone down to 50, you already lost 30 units gloss out of it. When you compare it to 25 gloss gone from 25 to 20, you already lost 5. So our eyes, when we see a product, we don't see it only color. We see it color and gloss, both of them together. The reflection of gloss give us that. And so most of the people use, when they use 80 gloss, it depends again on the country and the community. They normally use the high gloss as something new. And most of the time, most of the cars, it's high gloss, new car and all these things. When it loses the gloss, you feel like, oh, the color changed. No, not only the color and the gloss, and the huge drop in the gloss. And they're giving you, or giving your eyes, the message, it looks older now. It's not performing as good as the 25 gloss, because the 25 gloss, I mean, percentage-wise, maybe you'll find both of them reduce exactly the same percentage of gloss. But to our eyes, it looks more with the high gloss than the lower gloss. That's why, for example, when you're talking about 25 gloss, it's going to look better. That's why when you go to a matte finish, it doesn't change gloss that much in there. So hopefully I answer your question. Normally, pigments-wise and formulation-wise, no, the color doesn't it gets affected exactly the same way, but because a combination between the color and the gloss, to our eyes, it seems like it's a little bit tired comparing to the 25 gloss.
Thanks, Fakri. All right, so for, of course, the rest of the questions we will answer by email. And thank you. So for those questions that are not answered, in this platform, so we will try to answer those questions through email. We will reach you by sending the answers that you have asked via email. And with that, thanks a lot, Fakri. It's been a very insightful session for me. I'm sure for our audience as well. And what you have heard here will also be, we have recorded this session and we'll post it on our YouTube page. So if, let's say, you want to recall what was said and what was presented, you can always go to our YouTube channel or any other platform that we have to access the information. And with that, I would like to thank Fakri for giving us your expertise of 33 years and also be frank about it. And I hope everyone here take away some things with them. And have a good day, everyone, and stay safe.